hero.
Have you any hobbies?
My hobbies are fast cars and fast women.
Hobbies are healthy. They teach you things.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Welcome everybody into Around the UFL. James Larson here with Pro Football Newsroom, and I'm in the host seat today. Unfortunately, Ref and Zach both unavailable, dealing with some things on their end, so I am hosting for ATU today. To my left, I've got the man, Jake from UFL Shadow. Jake, how you doing today, man?
I mean, just kind of watching this shit show with Birmingham and watching them go up in smoke while at least they are supposedly have something to do about it, while looks like us Panther fans are just going to have to sit and wait and let the powers that be decide. So as entertaining as it is, kind of wish, I don't know, I guess I'm glad it's out of my hands, but at the same time, it'd be nice to have a voice. So, sitting back, watching the whole thing implode as we go along.
Pro Catch, I'm sorry to disappoint. Ducky's not on right now, but he will be soon, so don't you worry. Ducky will be here, but enough of Ducky. Luke Miller making his first appearance in a very, very long time from State of the Stallions, former PFN crew member, former ATU panelist. He's coming out of retirement, as it's quite the situation for you, my man. How's it going, and what you been up to this week?
Oh, there's nothing to do in my life. Nothing to do, just sitting around, twiddling my thumbs, just dreaming of glorious 2026 with the Birmingham Stallions back on top, because there's certainly nothing that would prevent that from happening at this point.
Yeah, I mean, might as well jump right into it with you being the Birmingham Stallions fan of the year, fan of the century, fan of, whatever you want to put it. Not just fan, but reporter. You cover them really closely. You run State of the Stallions, at least when you have time for it. I know you're a busy man. But how have you been feeling over the last week with kind of all the emotions? I know we talked about it on the episode you released a couple days ago that I joined you for, but there's been quite a few developments since then. And by developments, I mean a lot more tweets from Mike Repole, new co-owner of the UFL. How does that kind of have you feeling right now? And what's your kind of general thoughts on where the Stallions sit currently?
Honestly, it changes on not even a daily basis, like
hourly basis,
every few hours. I I think depending on the latest happening, I go from feeling like either, I put out a tweet this morning as a poll where I asked, if people thought what's going on with the Stallions is one of three things. Is it they've already decided the Stallions are coming back and this is just a way for them to sell a lot of tickets? Or is it legitimately they haven't decided one way or the other and they're waiting to see what the fan response is and how many tickets are sold before they make a decision? Or have they already decided that the Stallions aren't coming back and this is just a way for them to kind of cover their tracks and look like, be able to blame it on the fans rather than, themselves? And so I go back and forth between all three of those options probably multiple times a day. I think at first when I saw the 5,000 number, I kind of thought it was just a way for them to kind of look good as they left town. And then, once Repole put out some tweets about wanting to make it work, about asking questions about whether they should go to Protective or the Met, I kind of started to feel a little bit more positive and like, maybe they are actually kind of seriously considering staying and stuff like that. And then, I think I was feeling, decent until, the news broke today that Daryl Johnson was supposed to be on Jocks here in Birmingham, a local radio sports talk station. And then that they pulled the plug on that and backed out last minute. And so, it's just sort of day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute, I feel varying degrees of positivity or depression, depending on, the latest update.
Yeah, I feel like that, for a spring football fan, we're kind of used to having our emotions just pulled one way, pulled another way so quickly, nonstop. The last few years, really, between the leagues merging and coming and going and expansion talks and this and that, there's really never been much stability across the board. As for the whole thing today with Daryl Johnson, I thought that was kind of interesting. And I don't know if you caught the show, but I believe from what it sounded like was yesterday the UFL reached out to Jocks wanting Daryl to join them, and then all of a sudden this morning they pulled the plug. So, like, what happened behind the scenes? It kind of feels like, maybe some people on Daryl's side in the UFL were like, hey, go on here, let's do some damage control, maybe just push some more ticket sales. And then maybe Repole's group kind of found out about it and were like, hey, no, we can't be going out there saying anything right now because obviously things are still up in the air. And we're kind of getting close to this quote-unquote deadline because it was Friday night that Repole put out that original tweet about trying to save the Stallions. It's Wednesday evening. And as of last night, there were, I think, under 1,400 season ticket deposits put down. And then you got the plus 200 with the suite, so that's helpful. But you've only got 2 days left, and as far as we know, you're still not even halfway to that goal. Just kind of, what are your thoughts on where it's sitting right now on that end?
Well, I think, let me quick, before I answer that, just say there's really no good way to spin the Jocks thing, I think. Jocks wouldn't have put it out there that Daryl was going to be on the show without confirmation on the UFL's end, right? So,
right.
As you alluded to very clearly, the UFL, agreed for either reached out or at a minimum agreed for him to come on and then came back and pulled the plug. And so, like you said, at best, it was some kind of miscommunication on the UFL's end. At worst, there's some sort of, non-alignment on the UFL side of things of what they're trying to accomplish and what the strategy is here for Birmingham. So there's no good way to spin it. It's just unfortunate that, and people want transparency. Luckily, like you mentioned, Repole put out a tweet, with the update about the numbers. But there's a lot of questions and a lot of, if you're going to just drop an ultimatum like that on people, obviously that's his prerogative. But, there's a lot of questions. And I think if it's a genuine, sincere thing, people want to know, well, where are we at with it? Are you including previous renewals before you put this ultimatum out there or not? People want to have a sense of what's going on before they give money to something. And so anyway, I think.
And based on Repole's verbiage, it doesn't seem like they are including previous season ticket deposits. That's my impression. That's what it seems like.
It doesn't seem like that. If he's saying 1,400, you still need 3,600. That implies that either there was zero or he's counting this 5K as brand new.
Luke, I want to get your thoughts on this in a moment. First, I want to go to Jake because you're a Michigan Panthers fan, another team that's kind of on the chopping block potentially. We have no clarity on that end. From your perspective, how do you view Mike Repole going out there and being transparent and very blunt, but at least he's being transparent with the Birmingham fan base as opposed to Michigan, who is still stuck in silence and hasn't heard anything since really at all?
Well, from our group chats, you know my take on it, but I'll share it. Like I feel like part of it is him, maybe slightly giving the market a chance to show up. Because granted, yeah, like 3-time champion, you can beat your chest all you want. You guys didn't show up last year. I know the whole Mother's Day thing, but Luke, didn't you say with your podcast with James? I actually did watch you for once. That like you were just under 9K this past season if you take out the Mother's Day. So it's still not
just
great.
above, but yeah, not great.
Okay, so not great. So like the fact that he is giving the Birmingham market a potential chance, to make make it right and show that they are going to show up for the team. You can make that spin, but it really does feel like he kind of is dangling the carrot and maybe just a little too high, and kind of giving him some out. Be like, hey, look, this is on you guys. Like you had a chance. So I kind of go both ways, but I do lean towards more that this is just a carrot and stick thing, more than an actual legit chance to save Birmingham.
And Luke, I'd like to get your opinion on this as someone who is obviously a Stallions fan yourself. But, from my perspective, I feel like spring football fans have always wanted transparency and at least had an idea. And I feel like, the merger cost the UFL a lot of fans because there was no transparency. And then all of a sudden, 8 teams got axed. And sure, some of those USFL teams weren't in their markets, but they still had fans in those markets. So the fact that there was absolutely nothing really until leading up, and obviously there were leaks and there were things that came out, and I put some things out there, and others reported things, but there was quite literally nothing said from the league until they made the merger announcement official, and then all of a sudden we lost 8 teams. A lot of fan bases, especially a place like Seattle, got hosed completely. They were left in the dark until it was too late. What's kind of your opinion? Because I know Stallions fans, there's been mixed responses to this whole situation. On one hand, they're like, oh, cool, at least, we have a chance to save them. Thank God we at least have some transparency. And then others feel like you're being held hostage. You basically got the gun to your head, like, hey, buy 5,000 tickets or you're getting shot dead. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what's kind of your take on the situation as someone who's very familiar with the fan base, has lived in Birmingham for a hot minute, and really understands this situation probably better than anybody else?
Well, I think I understand some of the frustration in some of the Stallions fans who feel like this is kind of a ridiculous ultimatum and they're sort of being held hostage because, as Jake was kind of just alluding to, 5,000 in 1 week is, barring some kind of miracle, like that was never going to happen. Let's be honest. Like Stallions fans,
market, it could be St. Louis could hit that number realistically. Yeah. Everybody else it's a little bit out of reach.
Yeah, I mean, it's a number that's sort of realistic enough that it's not insane. I mean, if you think about it, Stallions, if you took all the home games over the last 2 years that we kind of know the numbers for, the average attendance is probably somewhere between 9,000 and 10,000 people. So you're basically saying, okay, the average Stallions fan base at a game, we're asking half of you all to go ahead and commit to being season ticket holders this next year, which again, on paper, doesn't seem that unreasonable. But again, to do that in 1 week when you have no ticket sales staff, you're really just putting it out there on Twitter. I mean, it's not like, hey, we're going to put billboards up all throughout the city that say hashtag Save the Stallions or SaveTheStallions.com or whatever. It's not super realistic, I don't think. So I understand why some people feel like, and I think some people feel frustrated because they feel like, well, other teams that have similar or worse attendance aren't getting this ultimatum. Like, why are we kind of being picked on? That's kind of, again, sort of a negative way to look at it. I mean, I think the positive way to look at it is, well, we're potentially one of only 4 teams that may be moved that are even getting this chance, right? And, yes, our attendance is, statistically speaking, there's not a significant difference between our attendance and, let's say, Arlington. But Arlington's just not going anywhere because they're the hub. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, that's just something they have in their corner that we don't. If we were the hub city, like we were back when the USFL was, 2022, then we wouldn't be on the chopping block, right? So it sort of is what it is. So, I mean, I think there's ways you can kind of look at this, that it is a positive that we're having the opportunity to maybe voice our our love for the team, to show that we're willing to show up, to make season ticket deposits. Like, on the one hand, like, again, other teams would love to have that opportunity. On the other hand, would it be nicer to be in Arlington shoes or, San Antonio shoes or something like that, who, God only knows how many season ticket deposits they have. Like, I would love to see how many season ticket deposits San Antonio or DC has right now. It's very possible that, we have significantly more than them after this week, given the circumstances. But, because of other factors, like, they're just not on the chopping block. And so, I don't know. I see both sides of it. I think it's not just a good thing, and super positive. I think it's also not just a bad thing either. I think, there's a case to be made both ways. And I understand all the spectrum of emotions that have sort of been expressed by Stallions fans, and sympathize with all of them to a degree. I mean, my motto has just been control what you can control. And all we can control right now is whether or not we make deposits. And if we hit that mark, again, like, we could hit that mark and they could lie and say we only had 2,000 deposits and still move the team, right? Like, I mean, we can't control that. All we can control is if we throw our full and total support behind the team by making as many deposits as possible, and then see what happens from there, and that's all we can really do, in my opinion.
And kind of speaking of that ultimatum, to your point, Arlington, very similar attendance, but they're the hub, so they've got an advantage. And then you look at San Antonio, and their attendance was kind of hit or miss, but you also have to take into account that, for one, the Brahmas got screwed out of a home game this year. Two, by the time they actually had home games, the team was literally basically eliminated from playoff contention. Like, they were 1-5 by the time they had 3 straight home games, all on Friday nights as well, which is not ideal. I know I was talking to some Brahmas fans the other day about how they kind of felt like, a lot of them love to tailgate and they love to get out, but you can't tailgate on a Friday evening because you're getting out of work, you're going home, then you're getting ready to go to the game. By the time you're showing up to the game, it's about to start. So that's another factor taking consideration for San Antonio. But when it comes to the whole ultimatum thing, and Jake just turned his camera off, but I did want to talk to him about this part is, I think
just shut the door. I wasn't gonna.
I think the interesting thing is, Birmingham right now is the only team that has a quote unquote ultimatum. It really puts, it's hard to figure out what's going on with Houston, Memphis, and Michigan because, again, there's been radio silence on all of them, and I feel like it's safe to say we can assume that Memphis is done. I mean, you quite literally cannot go back to Memphis. I wish Memphis would have worked. It's not working. You've got to get out of there. It's pretty clear they're done. Houston seems more than likely out unless they could figure out something with Shell Energy Stadium. I think just based on the fact that they have no staff there and, they cleaned house and the team hasn't been great. Our attendance was awful this past season, which, again, isn't 100% on the market, but we can go down that rabbit hole. And then, of course, Michigan, you've got the whole situation with Ford Field, and there apparently hasn't been any contact with EMU and this and that. To me, I lean in the direction of maybe these teams are genuinely cooked because they're not getting a chance. And, Repole made it clear they're relocating at least 2, potentially 4. And it feels like at this point they're probably relocating 3, and Birmingham is the 4th in question, depending on, how this all plays out. I hope I'm wrong. Maybe they're relocating 2, possibly 3, depending on Birmingham. Maybe Michigan gets to stay, or maybe Houston gets to stay. But it's very hard to read between the lines, and it's very odd that there's been no transparency at all except for Birmingham.
Well, I mean, I feel like it's just that Memphis and Houston are probably the obvious ones out, and then with Michigan, as I've been tweeting, we've been saying, it's just seems the thing with Ford Field is that's going to be the big barrier. I've seen people still think that they should just suck it up and go with Ford Field. Even it still sounds like it's Ford Field is saying no, period. And then on top of that, the $500K a game, it just doesn't make sense to do that, especially when Repole was saying that he wants a 15, 20K capacity stadium. So going into 65 for another year and beyond is, not going to happen. It's not the vision that he wants. And then, yeah, like obviously, like you said, we don't know that they haven't talked to EMU. No, they hadn't, 2.5, 3 weeks ago when Mike Bell had put that out when he was talking to the AD. Who knows if that's changed. From what I've heard, maybe that's changed, but I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully, we'll get some clarity. I'm not hopeful on it, but yeah, as far as that goes, still trying to find little breadcrumbs, little Easter eggs, see what we can, maybe find, but there isn't anything. And I'm not hopeful. I think that gray field, even though it's short-sighted, even just putting them at on the gray field for 1 year and then moving it to DC FC to Alumni Phi, for a year. But no, I think that's going to be one of the things that we just find out when the 30 days or whatever is up, and we get the announcement.
Well, Bob Baker with a very, very interesting comment. I mean, hey, Birmingham could be a done deal. We don't know, but Repole's made it clear that it's not over quite yet. But yeah, I think that's the frustrating thing too in this whole situation is you would think, let's say hypothetically that, and as I talked about, not on ATU, but, Luke, I talked about on your show, I talked about on some other shows, and, kind of the article I put out, I'm like, hey, I should have been more clear, things could be fluid. Obviously, it's spring football, things can change all the time. Hypothetically speaking, we don't know which 4 markets could move or which 2 markets could move this or that. But, if the league was planning to keep Houston or Michigan or something, I feel like at this point they would have had to say something. I feel like Birmingham's the only market that we've heard anything from. So that's why, I mean, to me, like, if you are planning on keeping Houston or Michigan, why not put something out there like, hey, this reporting was inaccurate, we're coming back. Like, the fact that they haven't denied it, again, kind of puts you in the spot where, like, okay, this is probably happening.
Yeah.
Well, but then again, I will say to counter that, if you are talking in other markets and you aren't sure that you have markets for sure that you're going to keep, because maybe they did like EMU, but maybe they really did like Boise better. Obviously, we know Boise isn't going to be it for at least a year or whatever, or Lexington or whatever. Like you can't lose that bargaining chip, because if you say, oh, we're not returning, or we're in really dire straits, that kind of does give the new markets a little bit of a leg up on kind of getting a more favorable deal for them rather than league-wise. So, I guess you could take that stance as well.
I think it seems like, on the whole, James, I would agree with your assessment of the situation. Again, trying to read the tea leaves. I mean, Repole said 2 to 4 teams will be moving. I don't see how 2 of those teams aren't Memphis and Houston, unless somehow they decide Houston is just a market they're unwilling to give up on or something like that. But those would be the obvious 2 choices. And then I think, Michigan, kind of like you're saying, James, it's just kind of like, I mean, it's possible that they could be kind of, let's see how they could be like, let's see how this Birmingham thing plays out, and then maybe we'll do something similar in Michigan. But I just think that, the radio silence seems pretty telling, that they, if they were, I mean, because it's just like if they were for sure, let's just say something changed and they got into a position where they like, we're for sure going to stay in Michigan and we're going to be at Fort Field for another year. Why wouldn't you do something similar to what they're doing in Birmingham, where even if you're going to stay, you leverage that to try and get people to make deposits, right? Like,
Right.
I feel
and
like
you use it to your advantage to have a marketing push, like.
Right.
Well, the man, the myth, the legend is finally here, Ducky. I know you're a little bit later than I expected, but
oh my goodness.
Technical difficulties. What's new?
Riverside.
But you're just in time. We're talking about markets and Repole and all that is good and wild in the UFL. I'm not even gonna ask you a question, Ducky. What are your thoughts?
Well, my first thought was, why does Luke look like me so much? And then, he looks like me, doesn't he?
Why do you look like me?
Oh, wait, yeah, you are older. You got the clear glasses? That's crazy.
Yeah, glasses and all that,
It's my alter ego.
Yeah,
Once the
goofy.
Stallions are folded, then I'm just going to become like Ducky and just troll the league mercilessly.
Yeah. I don't troll the league. I love the league. What are you talking about?
Well, like back in your days when you were trolling the XFL, like I'm going to be like that.
Oh. Okay. But my thoughts on, like, teams moving in general?
Just give us your thoughts, man.
I mean, some of them I agree should be moved. Some of them probably not. 2 in particular, but I don't run the business, so I would keep Michigan and Birmingham, just because Birmingham, they have fans. We've seen it before. It's just about marketing. I think the league should have marketed a little bit better. I mean, what some people are saying is that they haven't marketed enough to justify killing the team off because it's kind of their fault. But at the same time, do you really need to market three-peat champions? You know, I get it. I get it from both sides. I get it, but I
Well,
think they should stay.
Ducky, I'm curious to get your thoughts too, because I asked Luke about this, and we've been going back and forth a bit in the sense of we've seen a lot of mixed responses from Stallions fans in regards to the situation where, spring football, as we know, went from being a place where you had a lot of transparency to now in the new UFL there's been very little. So for Repole to come in and at least be open with the Stallions and, letting Birmingham know, like, hey, we need this and this and that in order for you guys to stay. Otherwise, we're going to have to move on. In my opinion, it's at least a bit better, even if you do end up relocating, than being left in the dark like the merger, where, I was talking to Luke and Jake, where you're left in the dark and all of a sudden the UFL finally makes the merger announcement and 8 teams are axed, and the UFL lost a lot of fans because of the merger.
I'll put it to you this way too. It's for Birmingham, the fans, you should be lucky because there's 3 other fan bases that are Michigan, Memphis, and Houston right now that have no idea about anything. They haven't heard a peep about anything. They don't know if they're going to be here next year, if they are or not. Birmingham at least is getting the transparency on you might be here. Just it's in your hands. Your fate is in your own hands. Me personally, I'd rather have my fate in my own hands. That's just me though.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Obviously, there's a lot of mixed comments, and to those in the chat who are watching along, feel free to drop questions in there, and we'll do our best to provide answers. But Jake, Abdul made a really good point here in the sense of the Detroit Lions have, 7, 8 UFL guys that they've signed so far this offseason, including a couple of Michigan Panthers. DJ Miller has been out there, looked really good. Gunnar Oaks is on the team. There's been, and obviously Jake Bates, you can't overlook that from a season ago. The fact that there really hasn't been much of anything on Michigan's end is kind of like that. This is a layup right now for exposure here for the Panthers and the Lions and kind of that connection, and there hasn't been much of anything at all.
Well, yeah, and I think that just kind of lends to the lack of faith that the Panthers are returning, is if they're not even going to capitalize on anything, then, do you really give them any hope? Though, like you pointed out, or you asked about the one post that they had with my education or whatever that was, like, so
yeah.
They clearly had some sort of sponsorship, but I wonder if that was just they wanting a little extra money, and they took it because the my Michigan whatever wanted a little exposure. So I don't know if that was a one-off or if they are still trying to do dealing in there, but like you said, you'd think that they'd be pushing the whole UFL, especially in Detroit with getting all the UFL players on the team, but I mean we haven't seen that, so I don't know. That doesn't bode well in my opinion.
Yeah, and kind of to Luke's point, with the radio silence, if they are planning to come back to Michigan, why wouldn't there be more? There needs to be at some point the radio silence needs to be broken. But kind of speaking of venues, and I'll open this up to all the people in the panel, I thought was interesting is Randall Woodfin going on and kind of saying no cap Birmingham, the Stallions are keeping Birmingham. Very clear that was a politician move with the election coming up in less than a week now, in the sense of, it looks good. And at first when I saw that, I was like, oh shoot, I think Birmingham is definitely staying, because Repole's original tweet didn't make it clear as to what exactly was going on. Then Woodfin puts that out, your hopes get up, and then Repole claps back, which I thought was kind of funny, a couple of things that he said in there, but kind of open to anybody, but I was just curious on your thoughts on that whole fiasco, because I almost feel like Woodfin made the situation slightly worse by saying straight up that Birmingham, they're coming back, the Stallions will be here, and then Repole's rebuttal is no, unless you bought 4,500 tickets yourself, nothing's set in stone.
Yeah, I think Woodfin, he definitely pulled a James Larson, and he reported that way too early. So
you got
he way too early. I get it. He's trying to get votes and stuff like that, but don't do that to your people, your citizens, your fans, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it was frustrating. I mean, I think when I saw that tweet, and James, you and I talked about it, but I think the impression I got was, you know, the way he said it with so much confidence made it seem like he had maybe had conversations with the league, or things had been going on behind closed doors where he kind of was able to just come out and say, like, you know, basically we've got a deal done.
It looked like he negotiated a deal.
Well, here's the thing. He might have got the deal done, and then Mike's like, wait a minute, we can just pretend there is no deal and get people to buy tickets.
I did definitely think about that, because I did tell James whenever the news came out, I'm like, I thought that that's what he was saying. Like, we basically got a deal done. And I'm like, I bet Repole and the league are pissed that he came out and just said they're for sure staying, because now this de-incentivizes, if they are for sure staying, this de-incentivizes people from putting season ticket deposits down. And so, but the way that Repole responded to Woodfin made it sound like they had not been in communication. You know, he said, you know, like, nice to meet you, Mayor. You know, hopefully we can have, you know, hop on a Zoom call or have dinner when I come in town. Like, you know, this team is definitely not staying. So I don't know. I mean, it could all be theater, and there could be backdoor deals going on, and they're just kind of putting on a front on social media. But, you know, the impression that I got from Woodfin's tweet was that some kind of deal was in place and they were for sure staying. But then based on Rapoli's tweet, I kind of got the impression that no, Woodfin was just going off of what Repole tweeted and misinterpreted it and tried to spin it in a positive way for his reelection campaign. And they hadn't actually, you know, gotten anything done behind closed doors. So,
And it's hard to say that a deal would be done behind the scenes without them saying anything, especially with Rapoli's tweet coming at me like, hey, where should we play, Birmingham? Like, I want to make this work. Should we go to the Hoover? Should we stay in Protective? Like, that, I mean, either you're being really transparent and, like, actually trying to get fan engagement, or just straight up lying, which isn't really going to bode well for your overall fandom in the UFL, in the sense of, you know what I mean? Like, it's just weird all around for them to kind of completely gaslight everybody in that scenario.
well, and I think it's also important for people to know who don't live in Birmingham that Hoover, while it is in the Birmingham metro area, obviously, it's not in Birmingham. And Birmingham has a long history of competition and a lack of cooperation between the actual downtown city and the suburbs. And so if the Stallions were to leave Birmingham and go to the Hoover Met, that would probably be seen, I think, by a lot of people as a real loss for the city of Birmingham, and a real sort of blight on Mayor Woodfin's resume, because, you know, it's just kind of a typical with a lot of cities, you know, competition between the downtown area and the suburbs. And, you know, to kind of lose another thing to the suburbs, there's already been such a push to try and reverse a lot of the damage that happened, you know, from the 60s on of, you know, with the white flight and things like that, and all the businesses and things kind of leaving the downtown area, you know. So anyway, all that to say, I mean, I think Repole coming out and saying, like, should we look at Hoover Met? That's not something that Woodfin, you know, that's not going to feel like a win to him if they stay in the city by staying in Hoover. That's going to feel like, you know, in some ways, almost just as much of a loss, and he's not going to be able to boast about that. And so the fact that he came out and kind of threw that out there as a live option after, you know, the back and forth between him and Woodfin, also to me gives even further confirmation that they haven't been having serious conversations.
Right, which then opens the door to, is this all a ploy to just make it look like they wanted to stay in Birmingham, when in reality they know they're moving out? And your poll, I thought that was interesting, because almost everybody split down those three options in the sense of what is actually happening. And someone, I think it was Sam with a bunch of numbers after it. I've seen him around the comments before, but you know, he was like, at one point or another, I've thought all three. So, like, and I feel like that's been all of us.
I don't think it's a ploy, like how you guys are saying, like, to make it look like they're trying, because I feel like they would do that with Michigan as well, and the other markets. Like, I feel like they would do it with them. Because if you can do it with the Stallions, you can do it with those three just as easy. Just be like, oh yeah, save Michigan. They would do it with them if they're trying to save face.
And that's also where it gets confusing, in the sense of, like, there's been, obviously, Save the Stallions is the one that got the most engagement and anything. Save the Roughnecks, Save the Showboats hasn't gotten any traction at all. Save the Panthers has done pretty well. I mean, it's not put up Birmingham numbers, but there's been, I believe, Jake, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was over 1,000 signatures on their petition that was put out, and there's a lot. So
yeah, over 1,600 right now.
Yeah. So I mean, that's
definitely not Birmingham levels, but definitely not just a couple people here and there.
It's not silent. Like, Rapoli's seen those comments too, for sure. So yeah,
I honestly,
it's just funny
I take it at
because
face value.
it's just funny because it's like, on the one hand, it is good. I agree, James, that the league is being more transparent and that Repole is kind of letting Birmingham, in a sense, know where they stand. But it's also funny, because like this is all happening via like a series of back and forth tweets, which are semi clear but also semi cryptic, and so it's still like leaving it very open and confusing for people to speculate about what is happening or isn't happening. And again, even today, we thought we were going to get more clarity with Moose coming on to Jocks and answering questions and talking for, a half an hour, however long. And
Dougie's
then,
going off screen to laugh at 42 on the show.
Dude, shout out
Yeah,
Memphis.
I'm not gonna-
Shout out
Coming in
Darren
strong.
Horton, man.
Hey, that's 10% of their average attendance this year, right? Like that's a pretty decent number.
that's true.
That's about what the Panthers have got. Look, they average 1,100 and they only have 1,600 signatures. So like, Showboat's right there with the Panthers in that
They're
number.
keeping up. Someone's got to put the number for the Roughnecks, please, when you get a chance. But Luke, I'm sorry to cut you off, but
No, you're good. I'm just saying it's kind of humorous that like we are getting more transparency in a sense, but because again, this is just happening through a very random series of tweets, like it's not enough transparency for people to really feel confident about what's going on. And
Right.
I think it would have been really helpful for Moose to have been able to address some of this today and answer questions. And the fact that he, pulled out last minute, I think was not a great PR move by the league at a minimum.
and it's
So
been
the
a
Roughnecks-
strange dynamic to
Roughnecks
watch.
get a third win over Memphis this year with 43 signatures so far. So
Big time.
3-0 this year. There you go. Over Memphis.
I think what's been a strange dynamic too is watching now the UFL and the Stallions accounts on socials finally coming alive and posting stuff of Save the Stallions, and the UFL account quote tweeting Repole and being like, "Save the Stallions, it's up to you." And then I'll see in the replies and people are like, "No, like it's up to you guys. Like you guys make that decision. Like that's up to you, not us."
I did
like-
see a tweet. I can't remember. I think it was the account's title's name is always memeing. but
Yes, that's what I was referring to.
The league tweeted #Save the Stallions, and he was like, "Bruh, that only you can literally do that."
Yeah. Wait, do the Roughnecks actually have 43? That's hilarious.
Yeah.
No, I think he's joking because he said 42.
No,
I guess
Oh, is it
I
actually
checked.
43?
It is actually 43. Yeah. That's what I was saying. The
Okay.
Roughnecks got another win over the Showboats this year.
There was more people that wanted them to keep the name Roughnecks on that petition than there was on the keeping the team altogether petition.
Yep.
Wild.
the Roughnecks are cooked. I mean, and honestly, it's not their fault. It's not the people in Houston's fault. It's the way that whole situation was handled in the merger. But they're done.
Jaren's spitting
Here's my-
facts.
Here's my question for you guys: is let's speculate for a minute here.
Unauthorized?
Yes, this is unauthorized. So if you're Russ Bandon, if you're listening to this, turn it off. The Stallions are not going to hit 5,000 season ticket deposits by the end of this week, barring some kind of miracle, right? Like if a couple businesses stepped in and bought 1,000 tickets to give away to their employees at Christmas or something, then maybe it'll happen. But otherwise, like it's not going to happen.
And you would need like an Amazon level or like a FedEx or like someone that has a ton of employees to do that.
For sure. So, what happens next week? Do they come out and say, "Hey, y'all didn't hit 5,000, so we're out of here"? Do they come out and say, "Hey, y'all didn't hit 5,000, but you did get to 2,500, half the goal or something like that. We're going to give you another week to see if you can get to 5,000." Or do they come out and just say, "Hey, you didn't quite hit 5,000, but it was close enough. We'll round up, and the Stallions are going to come back and blah blah." I mean,
I'm going with the second option. I genuinely think the Stallions are not leaving, and this is purely to pump up ticket sales. Kind of a crappy way to do it, but business is business. You got to do what you got to do. So, but you get to keep your team. I think it's definitely I think they said 5,000. They set the bar so high that way when they got here, it looks good still.
I think the thing to take in consideration is Repole wants at least 15K, in these markets. And he knows that Birmingham, and not to mention, he had a Freudian slip where he put, one of the tweets, he put 4,000 per game, and then he edited it to the number that the league released, which is around 9,000. We all know, and this goes for every market. Obviously, guys, I'm not just trying to hate on Birmingham.
Vipers.
All the ticket numbers that were released were inflated by quite a bit. I mean, St. Louis was not getting 30,000 to their games this year. Everyone could see that on TV. Houston was not getting 4,000. Memphis was not getting 4,000. We could clearly see on TV that was maybe 1K at best in those markets for the most part. So that's another thing to take into consideration is Repole going to be willing to give Birmingham another shot, for one more year when he can kind of look at the numbers and depending on, where they sit within this 5,000, if you're only getting an extra maybe 1,200, 1,500 fans per game, was it worth spending a whole extra year in Birmingham just to leave in 2027? Like, that's why I think it's more likely that Birmingham would leave in the sense that he wants to see, like, a super dramatic change now. Otherwise, he knows it's not worth his investment and he's going to have to leave. That's my take. I mean, again, that's more so speculation than anything. But from a business perspective, if you know the numbers aren't good as is, and you're only going to see an increase that still doesn't get near to what you want, why are you staying there another year just for the heck of it?
I do agree with you, but I think the only thing I'll play devil's advocate on is he said that he promised that they would do better in the marketing. So that 1,500 would, with better marketing could be an extra 5K. And so then if that's the case, then there's your, 15,000 right there, and Birmingham's right back in it. So
yeah, and I don't know. I think this is where the frustration from Stallions fans comes in is only one team over the past 2 seasons has averaged 15,000 fans, and that's St. Louis. Yeah. Like DC did not average 15,000 fans. San Antonio didn't. Arlington definitely didn't. Michigan, as well as they did this year, still didn't. Like, so I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to defend Birmingham's attendance as if it was great, because it wasn't, and there's certainly lots of room to improve. But I think that's part of the frustration from Stallions fans is like, okay, sure, yeah, like we need to do better, but the whole league, this is really a league issue, not like a Birmingham issue. It's not like every other market's averaging 15,000 and Stallions are the odd man out. We're like,
and the markets that are doing well are still somewhat, like St. Louis, for example. Like, look at the stands in 2023 to 2025. And even though the league is reporting similar numbers, it's so obvious that it's not. Like, it just simply is not. And you look at DC, that's a stadium that fits 20,000. They've got a phenomenal fan base. I absolutely love the Defenders fans. But you look on TV and you see, like, 50, sometimes 60% empty seats. And then they're reporting there's 14 to 15K at these games, and it's like, okay, let's be real now. Like, there's definitely not 14K in a stadium that seats 20 if I'm looking and every other seat at least is empty. It's just like, it's a league-wide issue that desperately needs to be addressed, and I'm hoping Repole can get it under control. But again, this is part of the reason why there's going to be some drastic changes this offseason is they've got to get into the right markets to grow. And they haven't seen. And again, I want to be clear. I'd say a lot of it is on the league because the marketing, the branding, and like we talked about it, I think, Luke, on your show, is the whole, we've been drinking from a fire hose, and the merger and this and that. Like, you had a whole off season now. Like, the point of this past off season was to get these markets on the right track, and instead every single one of them backslid again except for Michigan.
Yeah, but don't worry, we'll get rid of them.
Yeah.
See you in Boise, kid.
Shout out Blake Williams.
That's tough. I'm still not sure that story's real, but
it's not. There's no way. No, why would you put that up there? Yeah, you were talking about 15K. I was like, oh yeah, that's why they're looking at smaller venues. I looked over and saw my mic was muted.
Yeah, but see, again, I'm here as the Stallions advocate. Like, part of the frustration with the smaller venues thing too is like the Alamo Dome is not a small venue. Like,
right,
but it looks good on TV.
It can, for sure.
There's two things with San Antonio, Luke, that I want to jump in on quick before you finish that point. Is one, I think the Alamo Dome looks better on TV when they can actually fill the lower bowl, because one, it's very dark in there. I've been there before. So if you can get back to the numbers that you saw in the XFL in 2023, you're doing pretty well because you're filling in both sides. The end zones look decent, and you can't see the upper level, so it doesn't matter that it's empty because you literally can't see them on TV. Secondly, again, like, it's coming from me, guys, so take this with a grain of salt. But I have heard that there's been talks about venue changes in almost every single market, including San Antonio. There is a chance the Browns could end up. I mean, Texas has some really phenomenal high school stadiums that can seat, 10K, 12K, I believe. So, you're kind of looking in that ballpark. There's a chance. I know that they've been in discussions with some of those stadiums before. There is a chance that the Browns could be playing a different location next season. We'll see what happens, but
So they won't.
it's not just Birmingham who's looking at venue changes. No matter what happens, it's a lot more markets than we think.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to give the impression that I think that San Antonio should be moved or something like that, because I don't. It's just it just kind of sometimes, I think, for Stallions fans kind of feels like the league's talking out of both sides of their mouth, because it's like, well, we want 15,000 average in small venues, and it's like, okay, well, Birmingham doesn't necessarily have either one of those, but again, neither does San Antonio, neither does Arlington. DC has a smaller venue, but their average attendance isn't close to 15,000. Like St. Louis has better average attendance, but they also have a big venue. So it's just kind of like, it doesn't feel like the criteria, I think, is being consistently applied. But like you said, I mean, certainly there's more conversations being had behind closed doors and all that kind of thing. And,
I think it's what.
I don't know. And I think, well, I've talked enough. I'll let you all go ahead, Ducky.
No, Luke.
No. I was getting ready to say, I think it's what Mike's addressing is the inconsistency within the fan bases, the stadium sizes, and everything like that.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, ultimately, in my opinion, I just don't see how moving half your league in one offseason is either feasible or good for the reputation of your league. I get it that, like, let's just be honest, the league is desperate, right? Like, attendance was down this year, viewership was really down, like, it really sucked. And it's hard to justify continuing to do this thing if those trends continue, right? So I think the league is really desperate and really willing to shake things up. But I think at the same time, it's like, again, going back to what Ducky said when he got on here, it's just like hard to see how cutting one of your biggest brands and cutting the only fan base and market that saw tremendous growth year over year is really going to move the needle. Maybe it will, but I just don't see how cutting those two and going to Boise and Louisville is going to somehow save the UFL. But again, I mean, they know more than I do about the actual metrics and where things stand.
And part of it too is stadium deals and which markets want to work with the UFL, and that's why they had that whole expansion, we're looking to expand process thing that they released last year. And then they had they had over 30 markets reach out, and that's why Boise was so close to being locked in. And a little transparency on that piece and kind of what happened there, at least according to what I'm told, is Boise was essentially locked in. They were ready to come in 2026. But then once Repole came into the picture and he had some different ideas and kind of wanted to go elsewhere, apparently where Boise kind of got a little iffy was because Repole wanted to look at some other markets first before Boise. But I still stand by, I think Boise is a great potential market for the league, and it was a top 3 offer from what I was told from the 30 markets that reached out. So, again, if you're getting a sweetheart deal, kind of like originally in the USFL, Birmingham gave the league a really good deal to use protective and to kind of have that whole hub system down there in Birmingham. Like, that was a great deal for the league, and it's why they're able to stay sustainable for a couple of years. And then you look at what Arlington is like right now as well with the whole hub system. Obviously, we don't know the details on that, but it's clearly something that's friendly enough to the league that they're able to make this work, and that's why they're there. So I think, where you're at financially and where you're trying to be sustainable, you've got to take into account which markets are going to give you sweetheart deals. Because, again, are you going to go to Louisville where you can get a good stadium for, maybe $50K a game, or are you going to stay in Michigan where you're spending at least a couple $100,000 a game at Ford Field?
And
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I was going to ask you, James, I mean, I know that, the UFL is not very happy with you right now, so your flow of information has dried up a little bit. But I mean, I think that's also the factor in this whole thing that's kind of hard to know what's going on, is like, if they had 4 other cities locked in, then maybe Birmingham is screwed and this whole thing is a ruse. But if there's one or multiple markets that are kind of on the fence, like for example Boise, then are they coming back to Birmingham for 2026 just because they
can't
only
go anywhere else? Right.
Yeah,
and that is definitely a possibility. I mean, I'd say that is for sure one of the options.
Yeah. I mean, look at Arlington. They have no fan base, nothing, but they gave the league such a deal, they get to stay.
And Arlington's a shame. And again, this goes back to the same frustrations that we have with Birmingham and the poor scheduling in that market or in Memphis or like Arlington's been given a poor schedule too. I know that they're the hub and that they have the team living there, but most of their games are starting at Saturday at 11 a.m. Who wants to go out, and especially with their fan base, right? Like, who wants to go out and get drunk and go have a good time at a football game at 11 a.m. in the morning on a Saturday? Like, you're not going to be tailgating. You're
James
not like
Baker.
This isn't outside of James Baker, you're not going to have that many folks there. Like, it's just that's the type of thing where, like, Arlington, they should be playing later in the day. The better crowds that we've seen for the Renegades have been later in the day. So I think that's going to be key. And, Repole talks about it, trying to get scheduling right, getting marketing right, getting this right. Like, this season, the league needs to put their money where their mouth is and actually execute on these things to save the markets that they have left.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, it's like we know that Columbus is locked in. I think it's fair to say we pretty much know that Memphis is gone, right? And then the question becomes, out of the other three teams, Michigan, Birmingham, Houston, do all three of them go? Do just two of them go? And then, if not Boise, where else are they looking? I mean, again, and I think as you kind of talked about, James, I think on the show that, in your article and on the show that we did, like Repole's kind of the X factor in all this, right? The wild card. I mean, conversations that were had maybe 6 months ago, he's kind of come in and take over business operations. So things that might have been kind of trending in one direction before he showed up now could be totally revisited. And, I don't know. I mean, obviously there's just changes that need to be made, but I think it's the league is just I think Repole's good for the league, and I think the things that he's doing and shaking up the league are good, but he's definitely bought himself into quite a mess, and I don't know what they're going to do to try and figure it out.
Yeah,
I will say I have more faith that the Panthers stay with Repole involved than before, because obviously they absolutely didn't want anything to do with EMU. Maybe Repole goes like, hey, look, the smart move is talk to EMU. Mike Bell already did the legwork that I'm sure they probably would have done too. Like, hey, EMU's willing to talk, and then, suck it up for a year, then move to Alumni 5 Field when it opens up in 2027 or 2028 if, things don't go. And still, a year or two at EMU, not ideal, not great, but it's a smaller venue, and it's not that far outside of Detroit. Personally, I prefer it because it's closer to me, but other than that, like, it's not ideal, but again, that's not if you're here for the long term and you want and believe in the Michigan fan base, and again, they're the only one to, we saw an attendance increase for that, at least the official numbers, but for me being there too, it did actually look like a legitimate increase as well. So, like, the only team to do that should be a fan base you want to keep. Just suck it up, long term. But if it is really just that bad that this needs to work in 2026, or it all, goes to pieces, then yeah, move them. But otherwise, no, you gotta try for it. And so with him being in place now, I feel like a little bit more confidence, but not much. I still feel like I'm just waiting for the hammer to fall, which, by the way, did not happen this week or last week, I guess now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just don't understand why you would move Michigan when the soccer stadium is going to be open in 27 or 28. If that wasn't on the horizon, then, I understand why they would, right? Like, it's like, well, there's just no good alternative. It's too expensive to play at Ford Field, despite the growing fan base and the positive kind of progress we've made. Like, we just have to bite the bullet on this one. But the fact that there's a stadium that's going to be perfect for this and exactly what you want, opening up potentially in 2027 at the earliest, if not 2028. It just blows my mind that you wouldn't, yeah, like you said, bite the bullet for 1 year, suck it up, go to EMU or whatever, and then come back downtown. I mean, it just
exactly what
like
you want. Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
That's what Mike
I'm
wants.
saying, but
He wants the smaller. Look at Columbus. He wants the smaller, 20K ish stadiums. That's what he
Alumni
wants.
Phi will be 15. So
Yep.
or,
And
part of
the
15 is exactly what he wants.
The 10 to 11K that Michigan pulls will look perfect there. The gray field will not.
And with the right marketing, they pulled the 16 at the end of the season, so like they have the potential to just sell that out. And like I believe DCFC, they made it pretty clear that the last year talking to Lee that they want some sort of deal. I can't imagine that just suddenly gets wiped out, that they wouldn't want some help. So it seems like too good of a deal to just kind of go, nah, we'll move them. Like I said, unless the league is in that dire of straits, like you would think that would be the move you have to make.
And that's one of those things which you guys brought up is, the X factor of Repole. Can things change? Because without Repole, I think Michigan's gone. As you said, I think without Repole and kind of the financial burden it would be to keep Michigan, or in the sense of now you got Repole, and can you convince him, or can he convince the others, depending on what he said? Because we don't know where he stands with Michigan. I mean, he hasn't said anything about any market except for Columbus and Birmingham. So hopefully, and the good news is we're getting closer to, I guess the good news and bad news is we're getting closer to the deadline of knowing what the hell is actually going on, in the sense of the anticipation at some point is going to be over. I mean, he made it pretty clear he wanted some announcements by the end of this month, which, by the way, guys, I feel like this would be a layup for the UFL is, August 30th, you've got that College Game Day, ESPN, Ohio State versus Texas in Columbus. If the UFL is not there with, by the way, ESPN being one of their partners, one of their stakeholders, doing a Columbus announcement at that game, if they don't have tents set up, ready to sell tickets, ready to get Columbus fans, like, that's a huge swing and a miss.
I'll be there.
Right,
Don't
that's
worry.
a layup.
I'll be there. Don't even bother, league, because you don't want to outshine me.
I guarantee you they won't do that, because that would make way too much sense. Again, unless Repole changes things significantly. Under the previous regime, stuff like that, that's just an obvious no-brainer to everyone with a brain, they would never do. So I wouldn't hold my breath.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm saying it now. I know I'm not very liked currently, but please.
Well, Russ Brandon probably is going to hear you say that and know that it's your idea, and then he's going to refuse to do it.
No, he heard me say, "Oh, he's going to do it for free." Yeah, and he's going to think I work for the league, like James Baker.
Here's the real question. Moving forward, who's going to be the official drink of the UFL? Vitamin water, Body Armor, or Zoa Energy?
Body Armor, dude. That's such a household name now. It's got to be Body Armor.
Because that's also a Repole thing, right?
Yes. Zoa sucks. I'll be honest. Those. I shouldn't say it. I'm not even gonna say it.
Okay, here's another genuine question. Does The Rock know the UFL exists?
Okay,
Still.
he said it. He said it then. I didn't have to say it. Luke said it.
I
He
don't
did
know
make
if
the
he knows that
make
the league still
quote
exists. I mean, I guess he did tweet about something when Repole came on board, but
Yeah,
I think he knows it exists. I don't think he has the passion that he had for it anymore.
It's not his XFL anymore. So
yeah, I don't think.
I still
And,
don't
like,
think he would
look-
have been passionate about it in 2024 if they had both remained standalone leagues. But yeah,
I mean,
I
the
think
guy
the
hasn't
market
shown up
definitely
to a
killed it.
single UFL game since he was forced to go to the Arlington opener in 2024. Like, I think that says it all. At least in the XFL in 2023, he wasn't that involved, but he was there. Like, he showed up to the first few games. He was at the championship. I think he was at one or two other games at some point. The crazy thing is he's never been to St. Louis. I mean, they've been hosed. Like, the fact that The Rock hasn't shown up to St. Louis, especially, when they had some of those bigger crowds, like, imagine The Rock hyping up a St. Louis crowd at 35K. Like, that would make for some fantastic TV to open up a game. So that is for sure a letdown, but also when you're Dwayne The Rock Johnson and the league's no longer your thing and you've got a much smaller role now, it's just kind of like
Yeah. He's just got so much going on now with the WWE, all that other good stuff.
Papa Tui.
Yeah. He's got all
really-
that.
Abdul, you bring up a funny point about this plane because
Oh gosh.
I feel like I don't know how many have talked about it or not, but he was supposed to be at the opener in Houston this year, which honestly would have been hilarious considering Houston only had like 600 people at that game.
Hey, I was there.
Very very interesting optics, but he said his plane was like either overheating or something was going on, but like it's such a lie because the information on what plane he has, his private jet, is out there, like it's public, and the type of someone explained this to me, and I'm doing a terrible job of re-explaining it, but basically, what The Rock said happened is quite literally impossible to happen with the type of plane that he has. So, either he was given wrong information or he just completely made up a lie to not
his friend's
show up.
plane.
Yeah.
He was borrowing a
Nah.
plane.
They definitely told him how many tickets were sold for that game.
Oh,
and
exactly.
he said,
Absolutely.
I'm good. I'm going to stay in Hawaii.
Yep.
I can't be seen like this. I can't be promoting 600 people in the stands. Yeah.
And then also not going to the championship. I get season opener. I get it. But leaving Danny hang by herself at the championship game, that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, guys, I mean, it's been a pretty fun stream. There are a couple other interesting things going on. I mean, obviously, Stallions' big topic of discussion right now, but we've had a lot of UFL to NFL action. We've had over 60 guys now sign contracts. Jake, a bunch of your Michigan Panthers have gone to the league, and they've looked pretty good. Toatawa's impressed, and some of the reps he's gotten. DJ Miller's been great. Luke, your Stallions have been doing quite well. Winfrey has been a standout with the Stallions so far. I'm hoping Mevis gets more reps this week. He didn't really get much action last week. And, of course, Adrian Martinez from last year is looking pretty dang good with the Jets, and I think he's probably locking up that QB3 spot at least. But
James, how about Max Duggan?
no, that was going to be something I was going to bring up is, that took a lot of us by surprise last week when Duggan was on the waiver wire. And for those who maybe saw my article earlier today or haven't seen it, very odd situation in St. Louis. So Max Duggan went to St. Louis over a month ago asking to be released. He wanted to pursue CFL opportunities, just kind of wanted to play now type of thing. And St. Louis was very open to talking to him about that and working something out where he could be released and go pursue other opportunities. But there was nothing official set in stone. Nothing really came of that. There were supposed to be more discussions. Time goes by. Neither side, Max or St. Louis, hears from each other. And then all of a sudden, when that transaction wire dropped and we saw that news, that was the exact same time St. Louis personnel and staff saw that news too. They did not know Duggan was being let go.
That is crazy.
And what happened is in the UFL, the UFL has some very strange, personnel rules and just the way transactions work and operate. And, there's 2-week windows for this and month windows for this. And from what I was told is Duggan put in his contract termination request, and that goes through the league side of personnel, and guys like Jim Pop and Doug Whaley and those guys who are on football ops and kind of do that sort of thing. And it was supposed to get to St. Louis, but St. Louis was never notified. So 30 days go by, and then Duggan's released, and St. Louis is kind of like, what the heck? I mean, that's a guy who started in a lot of games. The plan was to bring him back and have him compete. Now, he wasn't being handed the starting gig, but he was going to at least compete for it with probably Siobhan Cordero and whoever St. Louis brings in free agency. So, very strange. Wish Max the best. Obviously, Beck put something out today as well, kind of quote tweeting our article. And, again, Beck was more than willing to let Max Duggan go. Like, that was not an issue at all. It's just how it went down was very strange, and now basically means that Duggan is for sure not coming back next season.
Skip Holtz could fix him.
Holtz has got to pick between one of the 5 quarterbacks on his roster this year, I feel like. I mean, he's got options.
Also, speaking of Skip Holtz, why has he been radio silent during all this? Like, why hasn't he said anything?
That is also a good point. Like, where he hasn't tweeted or, like, you'd think he would have at least retweeted a Save the Stallions or said something or...
Yeah,
like,
you even got players saying, essentially, like, we want to stay in Birmingham.
Right. And doesn't Holtz live in Birmingham? Like, isn't this, like...
No,
Florida.
he lives in Florida, but...
Gotcha.
I mean, he's spoken very highly of Birmingham. He's spoken very
Yeah.
highly of his time in the city. He, says in some ways it feels like home and that sort of thing. So, I don't know. I thought we'd at least get a retweet out of him, but I guess he's in Aruba or something. I don't know.
I guess we'll see. But yeah, that's the whole thing's odd, right? And we haven't heard from any Michigan staff, any Houston staff, any Memphis. Like, there's been, and also,
they're not going to. The league's not going to let them really say anything anyway. Like,
I mean, you got the Memphis defensive coordinator in the chat saying save the Stallions.
sign Jaron up, a true OG
That guy knows
around
ball.
the UFL. He does know
Screw
ball.
Memphis. Save the Stallions, though, baby. I'm kidding. Kidding. He didn't say that. That's me saying that. Jaron wouldn't say that. Jaron
He
loves
must.
Memphis.
He saw the Stallions in that conference championship game. He's coming for Corey Chamberlain's job.
Corey's been actually one of the few who's been a little bit vocal on socials. I've seen him retweeting stuff and talking about his guys going to the NFL and all that. So,
Derek Riley, who is Stallions' assistant defensive coach, who coached at UAB previously, and I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe lives in Birmingham, has also retweeted some Save the Stallions stuff, and but nothing from Skip.
yeah.
Someone said, you want CJ Johnson holding a sign? Say the ref back.
And we need to get Baker on and edit that right now. Oh, man.
Is CJ Johnson coaching a team in the UFL next year? That's another question.
He should be. He's a good coach.
That's one way to look at it.
No, he's seriously a
says
good
the
coach.
new Columbus fan.
No, he's a good
Jaron,
coach.
you got to go sign the petition. You'll be number 43.
Yeah, you can be tied with Houston. I'm just saying, like, if you move, let's say, the Roughnecks to Columbus and keep the staff intact, that's going to throw cold water on any momentum from day one. When the fans in Columbus Google what they're getting and they're like, "Oh wow, we're getting the guy that like barely went 500 last year."
I genuinely think they should do it the NFL expansion way. Basically, clean slate. They get to pick a whole new roster, stuff like that.
But you can't do that.
If you're doing 4 new teams, you definitely could do that. You'd have half a league player pool.
I would no, because it's so much different than the NFL. I mean, you're trying to, for one, establish players in the markets that you're already established in and are staying in. You don't want to risk some household names in the few teams that have them dissipating. And secondly, these guys, like, to rip. There was one thing when it happened in the merger where you couldn't keep staff on track. Now, Ducky, I will agree. A team like Memphis, that we don't know what's going to happen to that staff. Like, there's a chance Jim Turner's not back, and you have a new head coach who comes in and brings in his own guys. But if you've got a team, again, the Stallions, they're out here re-signing guys to contracts. They need to be put somewhere, wherever that is. Like, I just don't see how you can do that.
Like, we're supposed to have a college draft in like 3 weeks, and we don't even know like who the head coaches of like half these teams are, where these teams are even going to play. Like,
I really shouldn't say anything right now, but I believe that's getting pushed back.
Oh.
So we'll see. I'll have more details on that soon, but it was already pushed back, and it's probably being pushed back again. So I'll leave it at that. Which is good, because we don't want another
or unauthorized speculation.
We don't want another Memphis situation like last year where you had DiFilippo and Polian do the college draft, and then they got fired a week. Well, Polian left, and then DiFilippo got fired a week later. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But real quick, I do got to shout out the Showboats and that organization for sending 7 or 8 guys to the NFL. I mean, they've had a bunch of defensive guys sign now. So, shout out Jaron. Shout out that staff. That defense was stacked. But
Jaron knows what he's doing.
Cam Dantzler back to the NFL. We need Lance Boykin next. Please. But
Eli Walker.
Alrighty, guys. I don't know how much else there is left to talk about besides going in circles about what Repole or Russ Brandon or whoever else could be doing.
I got something. Kind of UFL related, because there are a couple Michigan players in the UFL. They cheated, and the NCAA brought the hammer down. They cheated. Yeah. The national title doesn't count.
Let me find
giant asterisks.
my hammer. Let me find the hammer.
Michigan suck.
Might need my magnifying glass for that one though.
They suck. NCAA found proof. Belt to ass.
BTA.
Hey, stands in the record books. It ain't going anywhere.
Yep, the asterisk is definitely in the record books.
I don't know. I've seen a lot of Buckeyes say, after Michigan went on the run at the end of the season with Penn State and Ohio State and Bama and Washington, that kind of doesn't leave much of a question. And I tend to actually agree with those Buckeyes.
Cheaters. Enjoy the
Hey, look at it this way: we both paid $20 million for our natties.
You better put a tip on that $20 million check. Isaac,
Alrighty,
why would you
fellas.
say that?
Chad, I appreciate you being engaged the whole time. I'm trying to look through now and just see if there was any questions that we missed, but I don't think so.
Jaron said.
Oh, actually, we do have one. Do you guys think? Maybe. I feel like he's kind of doing one last hurrah with the ELF, and we'll probably retire after that. But I wouldn't hate Reed being back. I think he could fit a couple teams, but he's balling out in the ELF. He's setting records, so good for him.
I mean, yeah, it's not hard to set records against office workers.
Europe has office workers? I didn't know that.
Honestly, if I was him, I would stay in Europe. Like, be the hero over there.
Yep.
Rather than a bench warmer in the UFL. But I don't know what he's getting paid and his family situation
Can
and all
we
that
get
kind of stuff.
wait, what'd that say? Can we get the
I'll put it
Columbus
back
team
up.
name be?
Can we get the Columbus team name to be the gold?
I agree. Columbus Gold, Ohio Gold. That is.
Not Ohio Bulldogs?
I like gold. I like gold. I even think I said that with Canton. Canton Gold.
I feel like Aviators is definitely a chance just because it's trademarked as
Stop
well.
saying that because the league, if anybody watches this, they're going to hear that. Nobody wants us to be called the Aviators.
I guess we'll see.
Because when you got a bunch of kids running around yelling, take flight, and then I got to bully them, and I don't want to bully kids.
I mean, you would be picking on someone your own size.
Nuh-uh.
Ooh. Burn.
Nuh-uh.
Alrighty, fellas. Does anyone have any final comments before we wrap this thing up for good?
Go to SaveTheStallions.com and make your season ticket deposit today.
Amen. I mean, we've got what? We've had over
And save
50
the
viewers
Panthers.
most of this show, so
I believe Lauren and Jesse did get Save the Panthers as well. SaveThePanthers.com.
They did.
So if you still, if you think that, it's going to make a difference and maybe it does, I did my part, go ahead and, check out Save the Panthers and, we'll see. Well, maybe it gives Repole something to think about, but, I'm a bit pessimistic on that.
Go to the ohioaviators.com and take your seat out now, baby, because we're coming.
pause.
Hitting that eject button.
All right. On that note, everybody, you know what the drill is. Make sure you subscribe to the UFL podcast channel. We're going to be going live pretty consistently here in the off season. Follow us. Our socials are possibly in the comments. I don't really know, but if they're there, that's because of Ref, who isn't here tonight. Shout out Ref. Shout out Zach. Shout out Thorn, who's for those who might be wondering where he's going to be, he's actually a DPP for Towson now, so he is going to be all over the place with them. And actually, if you're watching Norfolk, jeez, I can't say that. Norfolk State's opener with Mike Vick as the head coach, they are playing Towson, and Thorne will be there going up against Mike Vick himself. So keep an eye out for that. But until next time, around the UFL, James Larson sucks.
Save the Stallions.
Amen.